At Christmas dinner, my family treats me like a drifting, broke, work-from-home disappointment. Until a breaking national broadcast reveals I'm the anonymous founder behind a healthcare system that's been quietly saving thousands of lives. The first time my parents saw my face on national television, my mother was holding out a pen so I could fill out applications the right way. The second time, she couldn't stop shaking long enough to change the channel. The tree in my parents' living room looked exactly the way it had when I was 12. Same lopsided angel leaning like she'd had a long day, same glass ornaments that survived decades of kids and cats and clumsy elbows. The lights blinked between warm white and deep red, washing the walls in soft flicker like a heartbeat. Home always did that to me. It made time feel circular, and it made my family feel consistent. I stood near the lower branches, pretending to be very interested in hanging a tiny wooden sled. Really, I was buying myself seconds. Quiet seconds. The kind you try to store up before the talking starts. From the kitchen, I heard my mother's voice, sweet as cinnamon until you listened closely. "Maya, honey," she called, "did you ever end up updating your resume?" There it was. Christmas in my parents' house always came with a side of resume. I let the ornament sway between my fingers. "I'm not job hunting, Mom." A pause, just long enough for disappointment to put on its shoes. "Well," she said, "you should be." My dad's newspaper rustled as if it agreed with her. I swallowed a smile that wasn't really a smile. I'd learned young that in our family, stability was the only love language they fully trusted. Mom stepped in carrying a tray of sugar cookies shaped like stars and bells. She wore the same green sweater she'd worn every Christmas since I could remember, stitched snowmen across the chest, one snowman missing a button eye because our old dog, Benny, had chewed it off 15 years ago. "You can't just float," she said, setting the tray down. "Not forever, you're 29, Maya, I'm aware." My voice came out calmer than I felt. Soft, "I own a calendar." Dad folded his paper with careful precision like he was closing a case file. "Your mother's right, it's time to lock something down, benefits, a retirement plan, something you can point to." I hooked the ornament onto the branch. "I can point to my laptop." He didn't laugh, he never did. From the hallway came stomping, then the sound of boots hitting the mat. My older brother, Grant, walked in like he owned the room, cheeks red from cold, a dusting of snow on his shoulders. Grant had the kind of life that made my parents relax. Married, 2 kids, mortgage, a job title that sounded responsible when said out loud. He worked in corporate finance, which meant the family treated him like a wizard. "Still talking about Maya's situation?" he asked, snagging a cookie. "It's not a situation," I said. Grant took a bite and grinned. "Sure, it's just your mysterious thing. Your projects, your consulting." My sister-in-law Tessa appeared behind him, her scarf still on, her hair perfectly styled like she'd stepped out of a holiday catalog. She had the gentle tone of someone who gave advice for a living. "Maya," she said, "I was looking at your LinkedIn last week." I blinked. "You were what?" Tessa smiled like that was normal. "Just curious, you haven't posted in 2 years." Mom jumped in, relieved to have backup. "See. That's what we're saying. No updates, no company, no office." "Not everything has to be on LinkedIn," I said. Dad's eyebrows lifted. "That's what people say when they're unemployed." I stared at the blinking lights on the tree, the red, the white, red. White, red, white. Somewhere behind my ribs, a familiar exhaustion stretched and yawned. I had tried explaining once. Actually, more than once. 3 Christmases ago, I'd sat right here and told them I'd left my job at a major tech company. I'd said I was building something that could help hospitals predict when patients were about to crash. Before monitors screamed, before families ran down hallways, before doctors had to make impossible choices in seconds. Mom had listened politely, nodded, and then asked if I'd considered teaching computer classes at the community center. "Just until you find something steady." Since then, I'd learned a hard truth. If your success doesn't match the story people already told themselves about you, they won't hear it. They'll just wait for you to stop talking. Grant flopped onto the couch. "Mom, these cookies are great." "Tessa, did you bring that fancy cheese board?" Tessa nodded. "In the cooler." And Maya, seriously, I can help you polish your profile. Employers look for consistency. Mom's eyes softened, which was her way of saying she'd been worried in secret for weeks. We just want you to be okay. I wanted to tell her I am okay. I wanted to tell her you are standing in a house I just paid off for you last summer, but I didn't. Because every time I tried to push the truth into the room, it bounced off their expectations and hit the floor like a broken ornament. And I didn't have the energy to clean up another mess. Dinner in 20, Mom said. Maya, set the table? I nodded and walked toward the dining room. As I passed the hallway mirror, I caught my reflection, dark hair tucked behind my ears, simple sweater, no jewelry besides a thin gold band on my right hand. The band wasn't for marriage, it was a reminder, a promise I'd made to myself the night I almost quit. The dining room looked like a magazine spread, Mom's good china, cloth napkins folded into triangles, candles. A centerpiece with pine cones and cranberries. My parents didn't do casual, they did effort. They did presentation, which I'd learned was not the same thing as understanding. As we sat down, conversation flowed around me like I was furniture. Grant talked about year-end bonuses and the crazy market. Dad asked questions like he was interviewing him. Mom beamed every time Grant said something that sounded smart. Tessa chimed in about the kids' school fundraiser, then casually mentioned her promotion at the marketing firm. Every few minutes, someone's eyes drifted toward me like they remembered I existed, then slid away again, relieved to return to the safer topic, the people who made sense. Mom passed the mashed potatoes. Maya, honey, did you ever hear back from that recruiter I sent you? I set my fork down carefully. Beat, I didn't reach out. Dad's carving knife paused in the turkey. Why not? Because I'm not looking. Grant leaned back, amused. So you're doing what exactly? Still consulting? I let the word hang, hoping it would dissolve. It didn't. Tessa gave me that sympathetic look she probably practiced in a mirror. You know, lots of people struggle after leaving a steady job. It's not shameful. Mom nodded quickly. Exactly, this isn't about shame, it's about reality. Dad cleared his throat. At your age, your mother and I had a house, savings, a plan. I almost laughed, almost, because I did have those things. I had a house too, technically, if you counted the condo I kept in DC for work. I had savings. I had investments. I had equity. I had a plan that involved thousands of lives, but none of that mattered if my family couldn't picture it. They couldn't picture me in a blazer with a badge and an office and coworkers who brought donuts. They pictured me in pajamas, staring at a laptop, waiting for the world to give me permission to be an adult. Aunt Denise arrived halfway through dinner, perfume first, then her coat, then her opinions. She kissed my mom, hugged my dad, squeezed Tessa's shoulder, and finally looked at me. Maya, she said brightly, what are you doing these days, sweetheart? Mom answered too fast. She's in between things. I'm not, I said. Mom's smile tightened. The job market is hard. Denise nodded sympathetically. My neighbor's son was out of work for 8 months. He finally got something at Home Depot, not ideal, but at least it's steady. Grant lifted his glass. Here's hoping Maya finds something stable in the new year. Everyone drank to that. I took a sip of water and tasted something metallic in the back of my mouth. Not blood, just irritation. Curiosity loop number 1 sat heavy in my chest. Should I correct them tonight? Or should I let them keep living inside their story a little longer? Because the truth was, my life had been easier when they thought I was failing. No expectations, no questions that mattered, no requests, no guilt, just the constant low-grade disappointment like background music I could tune out. After dinner, we moved back into the living room. The TV was on, some holiday special with smiling hosts and fake snow. Mom passed out gifts like she was distributing proof of love. Maya, she said, handing me a wrapped box. This is practical. We thought you might need it. I peeled the paper away slowly. Inside was a leather portfolio, not the cheap kind Mom had tasted, but still, a portfolio, with a notepad and a pen and little slots for business cards. The kind you carry to interviews. Mom watched my face carefully. First impressions matter. Thank you, I said because I wasn't cruel. Soft, it's nice. Dad stood and reached behind the couch. There's more. He pulled out an envelope. My stomach tightened. Curiosity loop number 2. What are they about to do? And how much is it going to hurt? Dad handed me the envelope like it was fragile. Your mother and I talked. We know things have been tight. It's fine, I said automatically. Mom stepped closer. We just want to help just until you get back on your feet. I opened the envelope. A check, $5,000. My first thought wasn't anger. It was this strange, aching tenderness because they were trying, in their way. But then Grant leaned forward, saw the check, and whistled. Wow, he said, that's generous. When I was your age, I didn't need handouts. Tessa elbowed him. Grant, he shrugged, I'm just saying, sometimes people need motivation. Mom's eyes flashed. Grant. I folded the check back into the envelope and set it on the coffee table. I appreciate it, I said. But I don't need financial help. Dad's jaw tightened. Pride doesn't pay bills. It's not pride, I said, keeping my voice even. It's reality. Mom's voice rose slightly. Maya, you always say you're fine, but we never see evidence. You don't talk about a job, you don't talk about benefits, you don't talk about anything concrete. I stared at the envelope like it might suddenly turn into something else. I've tried, I said quietly. You don't listen. Dad waved a hand. We listen, The TV volume suddenly jumped, loud enough to cut through the room. My nephew Grant and Tessa's 8-year-old Milo had grabbed the remote and hit the volume button while reaching for a cookie. Sorry, he said, but the screen had changed. A red banner ran across the bottom. Breaking news, a female anchor's voice filled the room. We're interrupting our holiday programming with a major update in healthcare technology. Mom reached for the remote instinctively. Let's find something more festive. Wait, Grant said, sitting up. Healthcare technology? My phone buzzed in my pocket. Curiosity loop number 3, is it happening here now? A text from Raina, my co-founder and the only person on Earth who could make me laugh during a crisis. Raina, I'm so sorry. The embargo broke. Someone leaked the segment early. It's everywhere. My pulse thudded in my ears. The anchor continued. After operating under strict anonymity for nearly 3 years, the founder of Sentinel Bridge, one of the fastest-growing patient safety platforms in America, has been identified. Mom's hand froze over the remote. Dad frowned. Sentinel Bridge? Grant's eyes narrowed. I've heard that name. On screen, footage played of a hospital hallway, nurses moving fast, a doctor speaking into a camera. Our ICU survival rates changed within months, the doctor said. It's not an exaggeration to say this tech saved lives. My mother's mouth fell open slightly. The anchor's voice stayed steady, professional, like she was talking about weather. Sentinel Bridge made headlines this year after securing a major funding round and signing partnerships with over 300 hospitals nationwide. I felt my spine go cold. Because I knew what was coming, and I knew my family wasn't ready. The camera cut back to the anchor. And tonight we can confirm the identity of the previously unnamed founder. My father leaned forward like he could physically pull the truth out of the screen. The anchor glanced down at her notes. She is 29-year-old Maya Reed, a former engineer who left a major tech firm to build Sentinel Bridge from a 1-bedroom apartment. The room didn't just go quiet. It went empty. Like someone had sucked all the air out and left us floating. My face appeared on the TV, not a casual photo, not a holiday snapshot. A polished press image, hair down, neutral background, the one my team insisted on taking just in case we ever had to go public. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad made a sound that wasn't quite a word. Grant stared like he'd forgotten how eyes worked. Tessa whispered, "That's Maya." On screen, a graphic appeared beside my face. Sentinel Bridge valuation. $1.9 billion founder ownership. 54% estimated net worth. $1 billion plus. Dad's wine glass slipped from his fingers and hit the carpet. Red wine spread like a stain in slow motion. No one moved, not one person thought to clean it. Mom turned toward me so slowly it looked painful. "Maya," she said, voice thin. Is this real?" I stared at the blinking Christmas lights. Red, white, red, white. Then I looked at my mother. It's real, I said. Grant's mouth opened, closed, opened again. You said you were doing projects. I said I founded a healthcare safety company, I replied. I said we worked with hospitals. Mom shook her head rapidly like she could undo the last 10 seconds. No, you said you worked from home. I do, I said. It turns out billion-dollar companies can have Wi-Fi. On screen, the anchor continued. Sentinel Bridge uses predictive analytics to detect early signs of patient deterioration, often hours before traditional monitoring systems. Footage rolled of a nurse tapping a tablet. An alert flashing, a team moving quickly into a room. A doctor in scrubs spoke with urgency. We've reduced preventable ICU emergencies by 20%, he said. That's hundreds of families who didn't get the worst phone call of their lives. Mom's eyes filled. Dad pressed his palms into his face like he needed something solid. Grant grabbed his phone, typing fast. This is on, oh my God. It's on the Journal, it's on CNBC. Tessa whispered, why didn't you tell us? I laughed once, short, humorless. I tried. The anchor's voice sharpened. The Department of Health and Human Services confirmed today a major federal contract with Sentinel Bridge to expand the platform nationally as part of a new patient safety initiative. Dad dropped his hands. A federal contract? He repeated like the words tasted unfamiliar. I swallowed. Yes, Mom's voice broke. We gave you a check. Dad stared at the envelope on the coffee table like it was radioactive. We gave you $5,000, he said softly, because we thought you couldn't pay rent. Grant's face flushed. And he stopped, swallowed. I offered you job advice. I didn't say front desk at a dental office, but it hung in the room anyway. On screen, the anchor looked into the camera. Reed has remained almost entirely out of the spotlight. No social media presence, no conferences, no interviews. Mom's eyes flicked to my phone as it buzzed again and again and again. The chaos outside the room had started. The world had found me, and my family finally had too. The TV kept talking, but my family was no longer watching it. They were watching me. Like I was a stranger who'd walked into our house wearing my face. Grant's voice cracked. So you're like rich? I exhaled slowly. That's what the numbers suggest. Tessa's eyes were wide, almost fearful. But you're still you? I'm still me, I said. I still hate attention, I still drive the same car, I glanced at the portfolio on my lap. Still get office supplies for Christmas. Mom made a choked sound that turned into a sob. I told Denise you were having a hard time. Aunt Denise, frozen by the fireplace, blinked like she'd been slapped awake. I said Home Depot. She shook her head. Oh my God. Dad pointed weakly toward the TV. They said you saved lives. We did, I said. The team did, I started it. Grant looked sick. Why didn't you just show us? I sent articles, I said. I invited you to visit, you always had reasons. Or you said it sounded like a scam. Dad flinched, because it was true. 2 years ago, I'd mentioned a funding round on the phone. Dad had laughed and said, Maya, be careful. People promise big money in tech all the time. Don't fall for nonsense. I had been the CEO on a call with hospital executives while my father warned me not to join a pyramid scheme. My phone lit up again, unknown number, then another. Then my messages started stacking like falling dominoes. Raina texted, RAINA, presses outside HQ. Legal is panicking, PR wants a statement in 30 minutes. Then, RAINA, also someone found your parents' address, I'm sorry. My throat tightened because I looked toward the front window and saw headlights slowing, cars, a camera flash, then another. Tessa walked to the curtain and peeked out, her face drained. There are people outside. Mom's hands flew to her chest. Reporters, I didn't answer right away because the aftershock had arrived. The story wasn't just inside the house anymore, it was spilling into the street. Grant's phone rang. He answered, listened for 2 seconds, then pulled it away from his ear like it was screaming. It's my boss, he whispered. He's asking if I'm related to you. Aunt Denise's phone rang too. She stared at it like it was a snake. Mom's phone buzzed repeatedly, notifications flashing across the screen. She didn't even look. She just set it face down like it burned. Dad stood, walked to the coffee table, and picked up the envelope with the check. He stared at it a long time, then he whispered, "You must think we're idiots." I felt something soften in my chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet, just a recognition of pain that matched mine. "I don't think you're idiots," I said. "I think you were scared, and you tried to make my life fit your understanding." Grant swallowed hard. "We treated you like the family project." I didn't deny it. Mom's voice trembled. "Why didn't you force us to understand?" "How?" I asked, sharper than I meant to. "Beat, put you in a chair and hold your eyelids open?" Dad's shoulders slumped. "Maya," I took a breath and steadied my voice. "I needed your support," I said, "not your approval. There's a difference." Grant blinked. "What's the difference?" "Approval is you judging whether my choices meet your standards," I said. "Support is trusting me even when my choices don't look like yours." Silence. Outside, another flash. Mom stared at me, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I called it a phase." "I know," I said quietly. Dad's voice came out raw. "I'm sorry." Grant stepped forward like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to get close. "I'm sorry too," Tessa whispered. "Maya, I'm stunned." "Me too," I said, not by the news, by the timing. Because it was almost funny, almost. My family had just handed me a "Get Your Life Together" envelope. And the world had chosen that exact moment to shout the truth through our TV speakers. A knock hit the front door. All of us froze. Mom whispered, "Don't answer." Another knock, louder. Grant moved instinctively toward the door, then stopped. Dad looked at me like he wanted instruction. I checked my phone camera feed. It wasn't the press yet, it was the neighbors. Mrs. Haverson from next door stood on the porch with her husband and a bottle of wine, both wearing matching sweaters that said "Slay all day." I exhaled. "Worse," I muttered. Dad opened the door, Mrs. Haverson squealed. "We saw the news, we had no idea." Her eyes darted to me like I was a celebrity sighting in the wild. "We just wanted to congratulate you," she said. "And oh, could we get a quick picture?" I didn't move. Grant, still in shock, lifted his phone without thinking. Like it was automatic. I stood by the tree while they crowded in beside me, smiling too brightly. Flash, then one more, then "Can we get one with your parents?" Mom's smile looked glued on. Dad's eyes looked wet. When the Havorsons finally left, another car pulled up, then another. Then a SUV with tinted windows slowed and parked across the street. Tessa whispered, "It's starting." Mom looked at me like she might break. "Maya, please don't leave, it's Christmas." I stared at the window. A man outside was holding a camera with a long lens. I could already imagine tomorrow, the lawn, the questions, the rumors, the exclusive sources. I stood. "It stopped being Christmas an hour ago," I said gently. "Now it's something else." Dad's voice cracked. "What do we do?" I kept my voice steady because if I didn't, no one would. "Don't talk to anyone," I said. "Don't answer questions. If someone claims they're a journalist, you send them to our PR office. I'll text you the number." Mom gripped my hand. "Before you go, please, I need you to know how proud I am." I looked at her, really looked. This was my mother, 61, soft hands, tough expectations. A woman who loved me fiercely and doubted me just as fiercely. "I know you love me," I said, "but love wasn't the issue." Her eyes widened. "Respect was," I said. "And I needed it before the headlines." Mom started crying harder. "I'll earn it back." "I hope you do," I said, honest. Dad stepped closer. "What do you need from us?" I thought for a long second. Then I said, "I need you to admit you were wrong about me, not because I'm on TV, but because you were wrong before TV." Dad nodded immediately. "We were wrong," he said. "We were wrong and you were right. You built something extraordinary and we missed it." Grant's voice shook. "I missed it." Tessa whispered, "We missed you." I hugged them carefully like my body was still deciding what it could carry. Then I grabbed my coat. Outside, the cold hit like a slap. The camera flashes started instantly. "Maya Reed, over here." "Maya, did you really stay anonymous for 3 years?" "Maya, what's your response to the government contract?" I didn't answer. I got into my car. It wasn't fancy. Just my old gray Subaru with the dent in the rear bumper I'd never bothered to fix. As I pulled out, I glanced back. My family stood at the window, pressed close together, Mom still crying. Dad holding her, Grant behind them looking like someone had rearranged his entire understanding of the world. My phone rang through Bluetooth. Raina, I answered. Hey, you okay? She asked. I laughed once softly. Define okay? Fair, she said. We have a problem. I know, I said. How bad? 60 interview requests in the last hour, local stations, national. A Sunday morning show wants you tomorrow. Someone from a late-night program? No, I said. Raina exhaled. Maya, you're the story. I hate being the story, I said. Beat, the company is the story. You can't ignore this, she said. We need a strategy? I have one, I said. Raina went quiet, listening. One statement tonight, I continued. One press availability tomorrow, 15 minutes. 5 questions, we keep it about patients, about safety. About the nurses and doctors, then we go back to work. That's strict, Raina said. It has to be, I replied. We didn't build Sentinel Bridge to make me famous. We built it so fewer people die because an alarm came too late. Silence, then Raina's voice softened. That's why I follow you even when you drive me insane. I exhaled. Good. Because I'm about to drive you more insane. She chuckled. Your parents okay? I stared at the road, dark, empty, Christmas lights blurring past in quiet neighborhoods. They will be, I said. Eventually, you weren't lying to them, Raina said gently. You were protecting your privacy. Tell that to my mother, I muttered. My phone buzzed with a text. Mom, I love you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I stared at the message longer than I meant to, then typed back at a red light. Emmy, I know, love you too, talk tomorrow. Another text came in, Grant. Grant, I'm proud of you, not because of money, because you did something that matters. I'm sorry I didn't see you, I swallowed. I typed back, Emmy, I wanted you to see me before the world did. I drove on. The highway opened like a long breath. Ahead of me was my team, my work. The hospitals that would still need us tomorrow, even if the headlines moved on. Behind me was the house I grew up in, now surrounded by people who had never cared about my name until it came with numbers. And somewhere in the middle was the truth that hurt the most. It shouldn't take a broadcast to make your family believe you. Respect shouldn't require proof from strangers. If love is comfort, respect is trust. And trust, real trust, is given before the validation. I turned the radio on. A quiet holiday song filled the car, soft and old and familiar. And despite everything, despite the cameras, the chaos, the ruined carpet, the envelope on the coffee table, I found myself laughing. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd, and because, in a strange way, it was honest. My family underestimated me for 3 years, and the world chose Christmas to correct them. If this story hit home for you, drop a like and subscribe for more stories.